So I have a bit of a confession to make. I'm not necessarily a Lovecraft fan, which would probably surprise a lot of people. That was more Heath. Heath is the curator. He's the one that first wanted to do this project, and he's like a long-term fan of the Lovecraft mythos. And when he called me in to get involved in the project, at that time I think I'd only read maybe one Lovecraft story, which is The Shadow over Innsmouth, and I really liked it. Of course, as soon as I got involved, I started, reading as much Lovecraft as I could to get, more educated on the lore. But I can say now, after having read a lot more Lovecraft, The Shadow over Innsmouth, that first one that I read, is still my absolute favorite Lovecraft story, and I definitely recommend it as a first one to read if you're unfamiliar with the mythos. And the kind of coincidental thing is that story is also the one that is most referenced in this show. And if you're unfamiliar with the story, I won't spoil it for you, but the basic idea, of course, is that there's this cult called the Esoteric Order of Dagon that is worshiping the deity Dagon, who lives under the sea, and he has these humanoid fish-like people called the Deep Ones. And of course, in the story, it's this horrific thing, to be slowly turning into a Deep One, which makes the character of Rob all that more ridiculous. Now, Rob is not only, an incredibly ridiculous character, given that he really, really wants to be a Deep One and has a fish on the side of his head, but he's also a pretty important character in the story overall.
Let's ask the blessing.
You could say that Mike is, on paper, he's the main character, but Rob is also driving the story a lot. Heath and I we talk, of course, about the story a lot, given that we write it together. And one of the things that we were thinking about is that, Mike is kind of like he's the character that sort of brings you into this world, into the, from the world of the normal life, which we are seeing right now, him with his family, into this world of the bizarre, where they're trying to be these dark cultists. And that's part of the humor of the show, is just that contrast between the two. And of course, the contrast between their ridiculous world and this dark ideal world that they're trying to achieve. And so Rob, though he's not technically the main character, he is a character that really drives the plot a lot. So you could kind of argue that he could be the protagonist too, depending on how you look at it. And we both had, like Keith and I, when we were writing it, we had a really clear sense of who this character was. We were very much in agreement. But the funny thing is we had a really hard time with casting him. So many people auditioned for Rob, and Dax was the only one who walked in and just nailed it. And after he did his audition and he left the room, Heath and I kind of looked at each other, and Heath was like, I don't know what you just wrote down, but that guy was perfect. And I was like, yep, that's what I wrote down. And I was really proud to be able to bring Dax in, because this was his first major role on screen. Not his first role at all, but his first major one on screen. And it was really cool to see Peter and Dax. They ended up developing a kind of cool friendship, from what I observed, given that they are both, of course, their characters are good friends in the show. The two of them would, they were on set a lot together, and they also would carpool occasionally to, especially to the park locations, which were further out away from Birmingham. And apparently Peter was giving Dax a lot of advice and things like that, and it really warmed my heart to see that, to see them, developing that relationship.
In the morning.
She'll come around. When I bring back the dead, everything will change. Do you have a shovel at your place?
Fish do not use shovels.
Okay. I have an idea.
One of the issues that we had, as I've mentioned, this was a sort of a first time experience for a lot of us in film, or at least a lot of us were learning while we were working on this indie project. And one of the things that we struggled with a bit was audio. Unfortunately, we definitely had some audio issues in this first season. quick interjection on that note, though. This little symbol that they did on the ground, that was just something that I kind of came up with randomly. I was like, this is sort of a vaguely occultic looking symbol, so that seems like what they would do. That didn't have any like specific meanings, but yeah. So this scene in particular, this outdoor scene, the audio that we recorded, we had to just completely redo. So what you're hearing is actually ADR. So they had to come and record it later. And that was because we didn't have a boom mic. So we were very limited in our equipment that we had access to. And so the mic that we did have was kind of far away from their faces when we were filming here out at night. And they also had lavs, like they had some mics that were attached to their clothing, but they were wearing thick clothes because it was so cold. You can see as they cough, you see the air. That's not smoke. That's just because it's cold. You just see their breath. So it was really cold. And so none of the audio that we got was very good. And so we had to just completely redo that, unfortunately.
I've never seen the world this way before. You're about to see something you've never seen ever. For there be
I love how, because of it being dark, his face is just completely hidden while he has the hood up. It just makes him look like mysterious, but also really goofy at the same time.
You're distracting me. Okay. Sometimes, as variably attested, it dieth within the body. But after a season is raised up again in the place where the body did decay.
There's this part coming up in a moment that is ad-libbed when they talk about, it's Mrs. Cartland, or whatever, when they're talking about what they're hallucinating. Originally in the script, it was something really stupid. I was trying to write for this scene something just really random that they would say, and I couldn't think of something that was funny enough. And so I think it was something about a giant cupcake or something, and it wasn't very good. But when we were on set, they asked me about it, and I was like, yeah, I was thinking if you guys want to just like play around with it and see what comes up, like go ahead. And so I gave them that creativity, and so that line right there, the two of them came up with on their own.
The trial had some small hiccups, but I'm sure we'll get it right next time.